Welcome everybody back to Picture This with Adam Lehrhaupt. Today's guest is a master of comedy, color, and chaos, and I mean that in the best possible way. He is the brilliant mind behind Dinosaur Versus, the Ballet Cat series, Shea Bob, and a whole bunch of other books that have made kids shout, laugh, and accidentally learn things. His work leaps off the page, sometimes quite literally, and his characters are beloved in classrooms, story times, and on the shelves behind me. So whether you've been outwitted by an alligator looking for a meal, emotionally wrecked by a tiny cupcake, with big dreams, you're in for a treat. Let's dive in with the one and only Bob Shea.
Hey.
Hey, Bob.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited to have you, and especially today, which is my day that I go to the library. So I have a day every week where I go to the library. A lot of times it's to return overdue books because I tend to keep them very long. So I was at the library today, and I saw one of my favorite of your books. It's a book that you wrote and a friend of ours, Zach, illustrated. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea for this story?
Oh, for Who Wet My Pants?
Who Wet My Pants? Yeah.
I used to go in and help out a teacher once a week. A friend of mine, she was a teacher, and she was telling me a story. I'd go sit with the kids and we would draw and stuff. I would help her with a little after school program that she had. And she was telling me the story about a kid that she had, or she heard the story of, who maybe had a more significant accident in his pants, a larger issue. And he went up to the teacher and he said, "Did you have an accident in your pants?" She's like, "No." And she's like, "Why, did you?" He's like, "I don't know, maybe." And I was like, that is a funny way to phrase it, to be like, this is a delicate issue. How do I broach this? So I thought if someone did have an accident but then went and blamed other people, I thought that'd be pretty funny.
It's a really fantastic premise, and it's a great way to approach a difficult concept like that.
Yeah.
When you're creating something like that, so as an author, illustrator, where or how do you make the decision to either illustrate it yourself or to engage somebody else?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. And that book is a great example of that, because the book is really about the friend's reaction to him blaming everyone for wetting his pants. And the friends throughout the book are very, very compassionate and understanding, even though he's being completely irrational and he's just flipping out, pointing fingers. But they're like, hey, it happens to everybody. It's no big deal. I used to do it all the time. Nothing to worry about. And he won't have it. He's just yelling and yelling. So the point of that book was, look, his friends are being cool about it because they're compassionate. And had I drawn it, my style is more cartoony and more flat colors and just younger, skews a little younger. And I was afraid it would be dismissed as a potty book, right? So you have cartoony, big, bold, flat colors on the cover, and it's Who Wet My Pants. It's like, oh, it's an issue book, like, here's how to potty train. Zach's world, his characters are so awesome. Zach's world is so full, and they're so fully formed, and the characters have weight and are grounded and are just, it's like watching a movie instead of reading a comic. And it was perfect for that. So in that case, so the times I don't illustrate are when I'm working on something that I'm like, this would be great for Lane Smith. Not that I decide that. But if I say, hey, Lane, I'm working on a thing, any interest? And most times he's like, nah, I don't feel like doing that. But a couple times he did. And in those times, I'm like, I'm not going near that if you want to draw out your Lane Smith. So that's why I'm also doing a book with Lori Keller that I wrote and she's illustrating. That was sort of the same deal. We had wanted to work together, so I just kept coming up with ideas and pitching them to her, and there were a lot of no's there too. But when I finally got it, then she was in, and we sold it together as a team, which isn't that common, but
it's not. It really isn't. And I want to jump back for a sec with you picking Zach.
Yeah.
This is such a great companion for No Fitz Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And when I originally looked at it, I thought it was a Zach book until
Mm-hmm.
I saw your name on it. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because it seems like it's a great, kind of same place story. So I really do like how you guys work together to create that. And it is not something that happens. We don't work in an industry where we as creators necessarily get to choose who we work with. And I have sort of kind of started to see if I can make a change in that. I am working. I told you I talked to Scott Magoon this morning. He and I are trying to work up something together. Now
Great.
we created a book together before, but that wasn't like us working together. I had been begging my publisher to get me Scott for a story for a
Yeah,
while,
it's great. Yeah.
and they got me, and like he did an amazing job on the book that we worked on together. He and I have been talking about what happens. How does the process change when I'm partway done writing the story, but the ending hasn't happened yet, and I can engage conversations with my illustrator and say, "What would you like to draw?
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to see? I've got my character to this point. I can take it in this direction. Choose your own adventure. Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything that really speaks to you?" And see how that person creates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did it. We did it a little bit differently where I had the story not locked in terms of there was still some flexibility, but I definitely knew where I was going to go. And Zach had control over the characters because I originally had imagined it as a bunny. And he's like, I don't want to draw another bunny. I was like, all right, that's cool. And I was like, that's cool. It was a more traditional process in that I really wrote it, turned it over to him, and when I got it back, it was a surprise. Do you know what I mean?
Cool. Yeah.
We didn't collaborate as closely as you're describing. We knew we wanted to do a book together. I was able to write the manuscript and have, I think Zach did a sample illustration, like just the character, and we pitched it together. And when we do that, this is a little inside baseball now. When we do that, we say, hey, listen, if they love these characters and don't like my story, you're free to go make a book with them. If they like my story and they're like, we want somebody else to illustrate it, Zach was like, cool, I'll walk away. No big deal. So we go into it with that mindset so we're not forcing it on anybody and we're not disappointed. Like, just so everybody knows the ground rules when you go in, Anyway, I don't know if your audience cares about that part.
They definitely they love those inside kind of inside pieces for when they do it. So your background comes from graphic design, and
Yeah.
you've worked on things in multiple directions, right? So this kind of direction where you wrote and somebody illustrated, but you also worked on, you illustrated what somebody else has written.
Yes. I did that a few times too.
So when I think about the fun things that I like to see in classrooms, I love when educators take a story and have kids illustrate it, or have like one group write stories and one group illustrate those stories, or swap them back and forth. What are some of the things that you've seen on, school visits or classroom things that educators have done that speak to that, art director mindset, that creative designer mindset a little bit?
Almost every visit I go to, kids are sharing their stories with me. Kids are sharing their books. Everybody, it's great because it sets me up to say, I'll tell you, I started doing school visits and a few years in, I got sick of talking about myself. I was like, who does this help? Who cares? Who cares who I am? So what I started to do was, which makes sense, it's nothing profound. I just made it all about the kids from the start. I was like, hey, listen, I have been doing this a long time. The well is dry. I heard you guys are the best authors around, and you need to help me write a story. Has anybody written a story? And they all raise their hands. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I got a kid in college. I got a lot going on. I'm really counting on you guys. I've heard a lot of good things. And then we write a story together, or I position it as we're contemporaries and we're all authors, and I build them up the whole time. And it's because the teachers in the classroom show them that it's accessible, that it's an accessible skill. Like their imagination is honestly better than ours,
Yeah, they're much closer to being real creative all the time than we are.
All the time. And when I go in and seal the deal and say, I I have an F and G, like just a floppy book, and I go, all they do is take this and glue it to cardboard. That is the difference between what you do and what I do. And I tell them the same. We were
I
talking
love
about.
that message.
Yep,
I love
it's
that
exactly
message
the same.
because it really is. If you're writing a story or if you're drawing a story, it's the same thing as what we're doing.
Hmm.
And I do something similar in my school visits. I mean, I have a couple of different programs, but I have one where we create characters together.
Hmm.
I have one where we write a story together. We talk about, protagonists and antagonists and problems and solutions.
Hmm.
But it has to be a something you all create together. Otherwise, you're standing up there and you're going, I'm Adam. This is a picture of me when I was 7 years old.
Here's a picture of me when I was a kid. I'm so proud that I've never done that. I've never showed a picture of me.
I share a picture of two pictures. No, I share my first drawing, which I've talked about on this podcast before, but the first story I ever wrote in second grade, I wrote a terrible story called The Little Red Airplane, and the little red airplane crashed and the story ended. That was it. But I drew a red L, and that was my airplane.
That's
And
awesome.
I share that with everybody. Like, that's an airplane. You see that? That's an airplane. Everyone can draw that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts there. Your journey to be an artist starts there. And if you're telling a story, here's a picture of me when I was 10 or 12. I wanted to be a cowboy. I'm not a cowboy, but I can tell a cowboy story. Right.
Yeah.
So we tell that whole thing, and then there's like the whole thing, like my whole family was cow people. Is that the right word? And then everybody, you get a good laugh. And so I love those kind of things where you engage the audience, you get them kind of focused. And educators do that every day, all day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At some of these levels for 6 or 8 hours a day, they have to keep them focused and engaged.
Mm-hmm. And it helps that before the visit, because they build you up so much, and you come in and they're like, there's the author, he's so famous. So I act like I'm incompetent, and they're like, man, these people who I put up on a pedestal, he was fun and funny and stuff, but I can do that. It's not so special.
He
so
even
it's
said
kind
I
of
could do that. That's
yeah. So yeah, exactly. They're always ready. Just the idea that they have you come in for a school visit means the school is pretty committed to having the kids, write their own stories and be creative. Yeah.
It really is a sign that they're doing more than just using books for reading.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big part of what I'm doing. So for instance, right, you've created everything from, big, bold beginner picture books to easy readers, right?
Yep.
Do you change how you approach your story writing based on the style of book that you're doing? Or do you go into that book with, I have a story, I'm just going to write my story and we'll see what comes out?
Yeah, that's the second one. I think that the through line to all of my books is my sensibility. And it's all I have, Adam. I don't have any other. There's no other tricks in this bag.
There's some sense of humor in there too. Sensibility and humor.
So I mean, the visual part to me is really where I experiment, because I love the idea that I can, whatever I'm interested in or just want to explore and want to try, it's completely open. The writing the stories part, it's not formulaic, but it always comes from the same place in me. I'm working on a chapter book now, and it's just a lot of the things that I've done in picture books, like Who Wet My Pants, just dialed up to fill out a world more, but it's the same absurd humor.
Difficult. So I've written one chapter book. I did IP for one chapter book, and I'm working on two of my own ideas right now. I've written a couple that I haven't sold, but I love the idea of me having a chapter book. How difficult is it to write tens of thousands of words?
It's writing the tens of thousands of words is the easy part. Writing the right ones in the right order, that's a little bit harder. I get very insecure about process, about structure. So it helps me. So I spend a lot of time, like when I'm drawing, if I'm illustrating a book, I'll have a video playing on story structure from movies. I'll have people breaking down movies. And here's the hero's journey. Here's how the hero's journey worked in this movie. And I'll study that so that I just get it, drill it into my head, so that when I'm writing a chapter book, we'll say, or a longer story, I'm not just like, oh man, here's another funny scene, and then this funny thing could happen, and then this funny thing, and at the end, no one cares. So if I have that framework to start out with, it keeps me in line a little bit, you know. So when I go off, I don't go off on as many tangents, which I would love to just riff all day.
Have you read Joseph Campbell, The Hero
Big
with a
fan.
Thousand Faces?
Big
So
fan.
a huge fan of him. And then my agent just put me on to, so I had seen the Save the Cat, the original Save the Cat.
Oh yeah, sure.
They have one for YA now.
Right.
So I'm reading the YA version.
Yeah, that
of
franchise,
the Save the
man.
Cat. Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, Save the Cat it was a script writing
Blake Schneider.
method,
Yeah.
where he basically breaks down the arc of how movie scripts are made. And
Mm-hmm.
all good movie scripts, all good storytelling, really. And it goes back to Joseph Campbell, and then there's a woman named Mircea Eliade. I'm pronouncing that completely wrong. They talk about how story has been created in humanity, and there are certain things that a good story needs. And as long as you have those things, your story will be successful.
Yep. And it works.
It really does. They're very kind of like basic things, and maybe that'll be. I'm going to do a Save the Cat lesson for this. I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
For a hero's journey, Save the Cat lesson to go with this, and that'll be the theme of our episode here.
Save the Cat is so much more accessible. It's so that he lays it out in very straightforward terms. This is what happens. This is why this is happening. I've been reading Save the Cat. I check in with that once a year to be like, am I forgetting anything? It has informed so many things. Shea Bob, my book Shea Bob, Hero's Journey. It's totally Save the Cat, like from start to finish. And it works. And it was one of my most popular books, and people responded to it because it's a story that makes people feel things, and that it's a more fully formed story. It's great. If you are into story at all, check out Save the Cat for sure.
It's fantastic. I'll put a link to it in the notes and everything. If you're familiar with the podcast, you know where to find all the links.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, adaml.rocks is that's my list of links. You can jump over and see everything because it's funny. adaml.rocks. It's great. Pumping the brakes on my ego here for a second. But all right, so as we talked about, your books often deal with some pretty big emotions. Like there's some surface laughs. There's a lot of humor in them, but pretty big emotions: confidence, anxiety, or things like jealousy. How do you tell people, like when you're just talking to people about your characters or about your books, how do you tell people about those emotions, or with educators in ways to use these books? Like we talked a little bit about, Who Wet My Pants.
Mm-hmm.
There's a definitive way that book can be used, right? It basically says it itself. But some of your books, like, Shea Bob, are a little bit like you have to kind of mold them a little.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you talk about that?
I always frame, don't tell them how to use them, but I definitely frame them like when I'm at a visit, that these are things that everyone experiences. That's the biggest thing with me, is that these things, like, everybody's like, you're really good with the kids, and I'm like, yeah, because I pretend that they're actually people, and then it makes it easy. Oh, which is a joke, but I'm like, I don't talk down to them or anything. And I know things like this, being irrationally mad at your friends for something because you're dysregulated or whatever, like Who Wet My Pants. It's a common thing. We've all experienced it. The kids experience it, except they're small, so they don't have the toolkit to deal with it. I did a book called Unicorn Thinks He's Pretty Great, which is everybody's like, oh, it's a delightful unicorn, whimsical book. No, it's a goat's jealous of the unicorn because it's a unicorn, and the goat's like, what's going on? I can't compete with that. And these are all human experiences. And it's whatever thing is. And a lot of my books, the main character is a jerk because life's full of them. Sometimes you're one. You know what I mean? Like these it's not always positive and good, and it's how to manage the jerks or how to not be one, and and a lot of times they don't come back from being a jerk. And who wet my pants after his tirade? He doesn't apologize because that's how life is.
I love that. And I'm sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? In I Will Not Eat You, my book with Scott, my main character is a jerk. Yeah, he spends the whole time saying, I will not eat you, I will not eat you. But the last line in the book is, I can always eat him later.
Yeah, I won't eat you now.
It's like, yeah, right. Yeah, that's life.
Yeah, that's right. And those characters are the most interesting to me. When I go somewhere and I see somebody acting up or being unreasonable, I just sit back and take it in. I'm like, look at the way this person is in the world and totally unaware of other humans. Keep talking.
I love it.
Yeah.
In that kind of simplicity.
Yeah.
And throughout a lot of your books, they're really good for talking about tone, point of view, voice, especially when I'm talking to people who want to be, kidlit authors or illustrators. They're really good examples of that. And they're short, which, I find a wonderful tool. What's something that you think readers miss in your books? Because I know that there's levels that you put that sometimes you miss. So just one book, one thing that you think people miss that, like, here's something pretty cool that's worth pointing out.
I don't know that there's a specific thing. Well, in Shea Bob, they miss that the cast on his leg is because he has gout. He's on a big bag. He's imagining himself wealthy, and he's on a big bag of money, and he's got a solid gold hat. His teeth are diamonds, and his foot's in a cast. And I get emails, how did Bob break his foot? His foot's in a cast. I'm like, no, he has an opulent lifestyle of heavy, rich foods. He's going to get gout. It's the disease of kings. And no one gets it. I'm like, I'm very old that reference was like, yeah, rich people, they get gout.
So I had a couple of times over the past, few weeks, I've woken up with a strange pain in my ankle. And I blame it on the number of beds that my wife has, blankets my wife has on the bed. Like, your blankets have hurt my ankle.
I thought it was a Princess and the Pea situation. Mattresses.
Yeah, it's just mattresses stacked up. And she's like, no, I think you have gout. And I'm like, how do I have gout? Like, I don't eat red meat. I'm half a vegetarian.
Were you eating a big tray of oysters? I'm going to put down this tray of oysters and Google it right now.
It's because I went to Louisiana. So
did you have gout?
I don't have gout.
Oh, I was going to say, from what I understand, it's quite painful.
I don't have gout, but we have tracked it down to a sedentary lifestyle that was interacting with the start of golf season. And then
so you went from zero to golfing?
I went from zero to golfing. And and then, of course, because I hurt my ankle, it was like 3 weeks of not golfing. And then when I went golfing again, I was like, and it's not that day, right? When you, at our age, when you hurt yourself, it's not that day. The next day that you pay for what you did, or 2 days later. So I had flown down. This is stuff. Well, we maybe cut this out. I might leave it in because it puts me in a bad light. So I flew down to Florida. My son plays hockey at the University of Tampa.
Nice.
And he had games in Fort Lauderdale. So I flew to Fort Lauderdale. And I walked all the way through the airport and then checked in, and I was hungry. So I went and walked around town a little bit, because it's outside and it was still a little bit winter here. And the next morning I woke up and it was in such pain. I had to go to the hockey game on crutches and
wow.
Everybody's like, what did you do? Like, what happened? And I'm like, I slept bad.
Exactly. I went for a walk and then I went to bed. I was on an airplane.
I did life wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. You're like,
so embarrassing.
Yep.
All right. So we have 3 more questions.
Sure.
Here. We like to keep it. We like to keep it tight. So I do something called Adam's Book Bag, and this is when I'm holding up a book, right? So like I go and do a school visit, and I'm talking about a book, or when I'm in front of a bunch of, people and I'm talking about writing, I'll hold up books as like an illustration of this person did it really well. What is one book that you hold up as an example of something that you either try to emulate or, that you personally love this is my
Yeah,
inspiration.
that's it's Lori Keller and it's Arnie the Donut. Is gee, it's like the thing. My son used to pull that off the shelf when he was a little kid, when he was small. He's 21 now. When he was like, 3 or 4, and he'd pull it off the shelf because he knew it cracked me up every time. I couldn't not read it and not laugh. And I didn't even know Lori at the time. This is before I knew her, and I could tell whoever made that book had a great time. And I try to keep that in mind. I'm like, if I'm not making myself laugh or trying to, and I'm like looking at this like, well, I got 3 more pages to do. You're not doing it right because it comes across. So everything was so playful and packed with jokes, little jokes in the corners, and everywhere you looked where things were unnecessarily funny. Like, meaning she could have not done those things and the book still would be great. It's a perfect book. It's completely perfect. Yeah. That's a great question. Thanks.
It's such a good. I love the cover of that book too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I will pull that off the
Mm-hmm.
shelf every time just because the cover and it's
Like a big
the
poster. Yeah.
illustrations. Yeah, the illustrations are so good. So we'll put links to that
Mm-hmm.
down as well. Then here's just a special question just for you, because I know you've got a great space on your website where you invite people to, basically learn to be an illustrator very, very simply.
Right. Yeah.
So if you were going to create the Bob Shea picture book unit
Mm-hmm.
for wild and wonderful activities that you would throw in,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put your creative pages and links to all that.
Mm-hmm.
What would Bob add to that? It can be art,
Mm-hmm.
writing, your fit.
So
This is my ploy to get either Zach or his a certain DJ onto my podcast.
that would actually, you mean if he did it in character, that would be fantastic.
I would love for him to do it in character. It would be awesome.
So the way that I when I talk about story and school visits and have kids do activities, I don't like to overwhelm them. Kids get intimidated by the drawing when they get to a certain age and they stop being like, drawing's fun and I'm just going to draw without thinking about it and not be self-conscious. They get to like 3rd grade and they're like, it has to look like the thing it is. And I'm like, oh, that's not how I do it. So I teach them how to draw with simple shapes. They call them Bob shapes. They're Bob shapes. And because a lot of my characters are based on those because I'm started as a graphic designer. So that's the drawing part. And I draw and I show how fast I can draw. And I'm like, yep, this is it. And it looks good and it's fine. And I show them that. But with story, like I did these story dice where you roll them and you get the character, their occupation, something they want, and why they can't get it. So you get all that information and the kids just come up with the ending, because then it's not overwhelming. Then it's not come up with an entire story. You know what I mean? It's, oh, look, I've queued it up. I teed it up for you. Golf reference. I've teed it up for you. All you have to do is come up with the ending now. And that's so much more fun, especially for me, because what happens with the kids is they do what I try to do, and I can hear myself editing it. I go, oh, what could happen? And a kid will raise their hand and say something ridiculous. And my first thing out of my mouth is, come on, really? That's ridiculous. And I stop myself. I go, no, that's what we're doing. We're doing that idea. Because I'm like, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And I don't want to. And in my head, personally, when I'm writing, I find myself blocking those thoughts, and I shouldn't. And when I work with the kids, they teach me that this freedom of just
anything is
whatever
possible,
goes.
right?
Anything goes. Anyway. Yeah.
How do we come up with superheroes or like talking animals or any of the things that we do in picture books if we limit the creativity, and like this is our audience, right?
Yeah.
So I love
and it's
that
hard because like I'm old and my brain is like, this is the way things are. Things are this way.
Like you need to do it like this. And then I'm writing I'm writing these chapter books right now. It's going in a like little bit of a time bending way, like time bendy way. And I'm at the point where my brain is saying, like, you can't write a book where they can manipulate time. You have to there has to be science behind it. And I'm like,
Do
But
I though?
does there?
Does there? Yeah, does there though? There kind of doesn't.
Can it be pseudoscience? Like if I make up some stuff, they'll go along with it, but it has to seem plot. Like if it seems this car has to go to 88 miles an hour,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
DeLoreans only go to 85. We're just going to put a different speedometer in this DeLorean than every other DeLorean, and now it goes to 88. Perfect.
It's hard though, and then you look at some of the best stories or things that kids love, and you're like, there's no rhyme or reason to this. And they're just like, yep, if you say in your story that they drank a magic glass of water and they can change time, I don't need to know where the water came from. I don't need to know who gave it to them.
Good.
Doesn't matter. I'm with you. And that's a compliment to them. That's not like, you can tell kids anything, they'll believe you. I'm saying they're like, I'm open. I'm here for the ride. I'm not going to let logic get in the way of me enjoying the story.
So the last thing that we have here before we close out is I call story sparks. And this is just when you're having a moment and you're trying to get yourself jazzed up to be creative or, or to think about creativity, or somebody says, I'm creatively blocked. What's the thing that Bob does to go like, okay, I'm going to do fun, creative stuff here?
You know what I do? I don't do anything, meaning I know that if I force it, my brain is very stubborn and my brain is going to be like, that's the last thing I'm going to do. So and this was difficult for me because my relationship with work is what you just said. You sit down and you start digging the hole, and it's done when the hole is the square footage it needs to be dug, and that's when you put the shovel down. So a lot of times I'll go for a walk. I'll go to the library. A lot of usually too, I have more than one project going on. I work on something else. I'll just draw in my sketchbook. I'll clean up. Cleaning up is good. And you move your brain out of that zone, and then your brain gets jealous that you're not asking it to work on that. And it goes, hey, while you were cleaning up, I had some thoughts on that thing you wanted me to do this morning. And I go, nope, I'm cleaning up. You had your chance. And then it just sort of, ferments in there. And then you have to just hold everything lightly and let it go. You can't force anything, and it'll eventually come. And again, if you have a lot of things going on, it's fine. I'm like, great, I'll move on to something else. No big deal.
Yeah, the easiest way for me to write picture books now is to start working on one of my longer form projects. And then I'm like, I should be writing a picture book. I can knock out a picture book in a couple of hours.
Yep. Whenever kids ask me if I like drawing or writing better, and I say, when I'm writing, I wish I was drawing. And when I'm drawing, I wish I was writing. Because you're like stuck, because you're like, oh, I'm in the weeds on this thing. And then you're like, man, if I was drawing a picture, it'd be so much better. Yeah, you always want to do the other thing. Grass is always greener.
Yeah, it always is. And I do love the Bob shapes. We had a fingerprint drawing book when my kids were young.
Ed Emberley.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably the last time I really drew anything. No, I did a couple of things at like some SUBWI events with like Floyd Cooper and some people like that. Where I was like, I have to do a class with this person because they're so amazing, and I just wanted to be there and soak it up. And then you can't just stalk them from the back of the room. They make you do the drawings too.
Yeah.
All right. So the last thing is, what do you have coming up that you can talk about, and where can people find you? I'll put all the links and stuff below.
Oh yeah. So I just had a book come out called Bearsuit Turtle Makes a Friend, and that's with Abrams. It came out like in February, and I just turned in the sequel, Bearsuit Turtle Plays a Game. And it's a turtle in a bear suit is wearing a bear suit who insists that he's a for real bear. And he meets another turtle who insists that they're a for real bear expert. So they sort of like battle it out. Over the course of the book, they see if they can prove it. And they just, they end up just playing in the woods. It's just a lot of imaginative play in the woods, which is like how I grew up kind of thing. So I think that's the next thing I have coming up. Awesome. And my things are, bobshea.com and Bob Shea Books on the social things.
Socials, yeah. And I'll throw the links all in here. I want to thank you for joining us, and keep doing what you do. We all love it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks for having me. That was great.